You'd think if anyone could keep a secret, it would be a cat. They're judgmental, they knock things off shelves for sport, and they stare into the void like they're talking to a demon. But if you told me my 12-pound orange tabby would be the one to ruin my perfectly orchestrated double life, well, I would have at least bought fewer treats for him. Let me back up. I'm Meredith, 35, reasonably married, chronically underwhelmed. My husband Greg is a tax attorney. He wears socks to bed and thinks cumin is spicy. Our marriage has all the excitement of a wet paper towel. And I, foolishly, selfishly, decided that my midlife thrill would come in the form of a very not Greg man named Lucas. Lucas was everything Greg wasn't. Tall, tattooed, emotionally unavailable, and probably morally bankrupt. Exactly the kind of man your therapist would tell you to run from, which made him all the more magnetic. We had a system. Lucas only came over on Tuesdays at 2 p.m., when Greg was at his power lunch and ping pong networking group. Everything was smooth. No mess, no emotions, just espresso and sin. Until one Tuesday, Lucas decided to bring salmon. I brought it for Mr. Whiskers, he said, stroking the cat like some Bond villain. He deserves a treat. The cat, my cat, who loved Greg more than tuna and had never once accepted Lucas as a part of his reality. But he accepted the salmon. Traitor. Now here's the thing, Greg's mother, Dolores, lives 2 blocks away. She has keys to our house in case of emergency. Unfortunately, suspicious silence counts as an emergency in Dolores's world. She once barged in because I didn't answer her text within 5 minutes. Turned out I was pooping. So you can imagine what happened next. Lucas and I were mid-debauchery when Mr. Whiskers, high on fish, started meowing like he'd seen a ghost. Lucas, shirtless, tried to shoo him away. That's when Dolores walked in. She froze. I froze. Lucas froze. The cat, unbothered. Dolores blinked, once, twice, then turned to me and said, "Well, at least now I know why Greg's been so tired lately. You've been borrowing his back pain." I died. My soul left my body. I tried to explain, yoga instructor, misunderstood downward dog, blah blah, but the damage was done. She left in silence. And I mean chilling, Catholic guilt-laced silence. The next day, Greg sat me down. "Dolores told me she saw you doing Pilates with someone named Lucas," he said, sipping herbal tea like it was vodka. I tried to cry. Nothing came out. Just a dry squeak and a single cat hair. To my surprise, Greg didn't explode. He just nodded and said, "I'm not even mad. I'm just relieved. Honestly, I thought you were plotting to kill me for the insurance money." Which, fair. In the end, we didn't get divorced. We just, quietly, ignored it. I stopped seeing Lucas. Greg started wearing cotton boxers instead of those silky nightmares, and Mr. Whiskers, that little furry narc, got a new scratching post out of the whole thing. So what did I learn? Well, don't cheat, but if you do, don't trust the damn cat. Story 2. It all started with a typo. I was trying to join a local neighborhood bartering group. You know, the kind where you trade old lamps for gluten-free cookies and passive-aggressive parenting advice. But instead, I somehow ended up in a private Facebook group called Moms Who Manifest. Now, let me be clear, I am not a mom. I don't own a vision board. And the closest I've come to manifesting was accidentally willing my ex to get a flat tire in the rain. I meant to leave the group immediately, but then I saw a post that read, "Ladies, what crystals help calm toddler rage during Mercury retrograde?" I choked on my cold brew. I stayed. Every day, there were dozens of posts like this. Is it okay if my 4-year-old talks to the moon? Which full moon ritual helped you stop yelling at your kids? And my toddler bit another toddler. Should I smudge our playroom? It was a goldmine of chaotic energy. And here's the thing. I started commenting. Jokingly at first. You know, just sarcastic one-liners like, "Have you tried duct tape and sage?" Or maybe your child is a werewolf, not just spirited. But they loved it. One mom messaged me privately and said, "You're so wise. I feel healed just reading your words." I had written, "Stop trying to raise a tiny Buddha. He's 3. Give him a snack and screen time." Within 2 weeks, I had 300 followers inside the group. Within a month, they were tagging me on every post. "Jenna, what do you think about this moon bath recipe?" "Jenna, how do I spiritually cleanse my son's Lego collection?" Suddenly, I was Jenna, mom coach, life guru, mystic snack advisor. I panicked. I didn't even have kids, let alone answers. But it felt good. These women listened to me. They thought I had my life together. I started Googling things like gentle parenting phrases and how not to ruin a child's chakra. I was in deep. I was living a lie, but an empowering one. Then came the retreat. Yes, a real-life retreat. One of the moms messaged me, "We're organizing a weekend in Sedona. You have to come speak. Everyone's dying to meet you." I stared at the message like it was a positive pregnancy test. I considered faking my death, or pretending I was AI, but in the end, I did what any self-respecting imposter would do. I booked a flight. Sedona was magical. Red rocks, energy vortexes, essential oils with names like moon tears and ego death. I wore a flowing dress and gave a talk called The Inner Toddler Within Us All. They cried. I cried. Someone handed me a crystal shaped like a Cheez-It and called it the snack of wisdom. And just like that, I became a legend. To this day, I'm still in the group. I give daily affirmations like, "Trust the journey." And don't forget snacks. Mercury might be in retrograde, but your kid is just hungry. You are a goddess, even with goldfish crackers in your bra. Moral of the story. Never underestimate the power of sarcasm, misplaced confidence, and Facebook algorithms. Story 3. I'll admit it, I don't cook. Not because I can't, I just have a complicated relationship with fire. And heat, and instructions, and also knives. But when my boyfriend James casually mentioned, "I love you babe, even if your only kitchen skill is boiling water," something inside me snapped. Not in a dangerous way, unless you count what happened next. I decided to cook him dinner. Not just any dinner, a romantic over-the-top Gordon Ramsay would shed a single tear type of meal. I googled Michelin star recipes that don't involve caviar and landed on something called duck à l'orange. Fancy, right? The duck alone cost me $87. Organic. Ethically massaged or something. I also bought an absurd amount of fresh herbs I couldn't pronounce. Orange liqueur and copper pan I didn't need but Instagram said would make me feel like a chef in a linen apron that made me look like a sad pioneer woman. Total, $496.32. I told myself it was an investment in love. Here's how it went. And I set off the fire alarm twice. And I basted the duck so many times it looked like it had a spray tan. And I burned the sauce. Made more. Burned that too. And I cried into the third batch and called it infused. And I accidentally flambéed the cutting board. James walked in as I was plating the duck like it was an ancient artifact. He looked confused. I thought you were ordering sushi? I smiled like a psychopath. No, babe, I cooked. For you. He took one bite. Chewed. Paused. It's chewy, he said carefully. Is it supposed to taste like whiskey and sadness? I wanted to scream. But instead I raised my wine glass and said, that's the duck's soul. It suffered for our love. We ended the night eating leftover chips on the couch. Moral of the story? Never doubt a woman who can't cook. She just might burn $500 to prove a point. Story 4. Look, I just wanted to stretch. I signed up for a free yoga class at the local rec center because my spine sounded like a bag of broken pretzels every time I moved. The class was called Awaken Your Inner Fire, which sounded aggressive, but I figured maybe I'd just sweat a little and feel smug afterward. Instead, I walked into a dimly lit room full of women in white linen and one barefoot man named Cedar. Yes, Cedar. He spoke only in metaphors and once asked the class to exhale generational trauma. I was hooked. By week 3, I stopped wearing a bra and started using the phrase realign my cosmic boundaries in casual conversation. My coworkers were concerned. My dog avoided me. One day, Cedar announced he was going on a sacred solo journey into silence, which, in normal person language, meant he broke up with us. Except this wasn't a boyfriend situation. It was somehow worse. Before I could say namaste, everyone turned to me. You're the only one who gets it, said a woman named Skylar, who hadn't spoken since week 2. You must lead. Me? The girl who once sneezed during downward dog and pulled a hamstring? I tried to decline. I'm not a leader, I said. I only came for the free eucalyptus water. But it was too late. They started calling me she who breathes with clarity. Someone brought me a homemade crown made of recycled yoga mats. We met every Tuesday at sunset under the slogan, change begins when you surrender your Wi-Fi. It got out of hand. I gave one talk about letting go of negativity and someone sold it as an NFT. Another time a woman tattooed my quote, we are all just soft pretzels in the oven of the universe, on her ankle. Eventually I snapped out of it when someone tried to pay me in moon rocks for spiritual coaching. I remembered I had bills, and a spine. So I faked a spiritual awakening and told them I needed to ascend to a new realm. By realm, I meant Seattle. Now I do Pilates. No mantras, no crystals, just pain. But sometimes, in the middle of the night, I wonder if Skylar's still out there, exhaling trauma without me. Story 5. I live with a crystal witch. Okay, she's not technically a witch. She just owns too many flowy dresses and once made moon water in our blender. Her name is Jade, and she believes the universe listens to her every whisper, which is how we ended up in this mess. It started on a Sunday. Jade had just finished a 4-hour YouTube manifesting marathon and emerged from her bedroom like a sleep-deprived oracle. I'm calling in my soulmate this week, she declared, holding a rose quartz heart over her chest like she was defibrillating her emotions. He's on his way. I can feel him. I nodded politely while Googling how to remove glitter from bathtub drains. This was not my first rodeo. To be fair, Jade had manifested some impressive stuff before. A parking spot during Coachella weekend, a couch off Craigslist that didn't have bedbugs, and once, a man who looked like Jason Momoa. So when she said she was manifesting her soulmate, I didn't panic. I should have. By Thursday, strange things started happening. My boyfriend, Connor, sweet, dependable, emotionally constipated Connor, started acting weird. He started texting Jade about astrology. He brought her oat milk lattes by accident. He said things like Mercury's in retrograde, huh? Even though the last time I brought that up, he said Mercury was just a planet, babe. Then, one night, I walked into the kitchen and found them sitting very close, like my thigh accidentally touched yours but I'm not moving it close. Jade was reading his birth chart. He looked impressed. I looked for something sharp. I confronted her. Are you manifesting my boyfriend? She blinked. The universe doesn't make mistakes. Oh, it made one when it let you sign this lease. She claimed it was fate, that Connor had simply vibrated on her frequency. I told her to stop vibrating anywhere near my relationship. The next day she staged a cleansing ritual to release toxic attachments. She burned sage and walked around the apartment like a passive-aggressive ghostbuster. I considered lighting a match myself, not for energy cleansing but because our security deposit was already dead. Connor, for his part, didn't even realize he was the manifested one. When I asked if he had feelings for Jade, he said, she's cool, I guess? Which is emotional Morse code for I have no idea what's going on. But the damage was done. I moved out a week later, took my blender, and left her the moon water. Last I heard, she's dating someone new, a Sagittarius with a suspicious resemblance to my ex from college. The universe? Still listening apparently, but now I talk louder. Story 6. When Mark said he wanted a traditional wife, I assumed he meant, like, someone who cooks. Maybe does laundry without shrink-wrapping his hoodies into Barbie outfits. Fine, I can boil pasta. I even own an iron, somewhere. But no. Mark had vibes in mind. 1950s housewife vibes. Pearls. Obedience. Gratitude for providing a roof and occasional emotional availability. He didn't say it outright. He hinted. Like a coward. He'd say things like, my mom always had dinner on the table when my dad came home, or, there's something comforting about a woman who supports her man's vision. My personal favorite? I just think women were happier back then, so I decided to show him just how happy 1950s housewives really were. It started Monday. I greeted him in full Stepford mode, hair curled, apron on, fake smile stretched so wide my jaw cracked. "Welcome home, darling," I chirped, handing him a cocktail and adjusting my pearls. He looked both aroused and confused. I served dinner, meatloaf, mashed potatoes, and passive aggression. While he chewed, I monologued about my day of service like I was reading from a Cold War propaganda leaflet. Tuesday, I vacuumed in heels. I also accidentally left pamphlets around the house titled "Trapped in a Man's World, A Wife's Cry for Help." By Wednesday, I was chain-smoking candy cigarettes and quoting Betty Friedan. He asked what was going on. I told him I was leaning into my domestic destiny. By Thursday, I started calling him Daddy in public, loudly, at the grocery store, at the gas station, at his office. "Daddy says I can't drive after dark." I'd squealed to the cashier while buying 5 gallons of bleach. He begged me to stop. I said I couldn't. I was just trying to be a good little housewife. Friday, I served dinner in complete silence, staring past him like a woman plotting her escape with a toaster cord. Saturday, I snapped. I staged a full 1950s breakdown, curlers in my hair, flour on my face, mascara streaked like a war painting. "I burned the roast, Mark," I screamed, flinging a casserole against the wall. "I burned it because I'm empty inside." He blinked. "You're scaring me." "That's the spirit," I said. "Now pour me a martini before I start whispering to the blender again." By Sunday, he admitted he might have miscommunicated. I told him next week I'd try being a traditional mistress instead. He moved out Monday. I kept the pearls. Story 7. It all started with a leaky shower and ended with me accidentally subscribing to my neighbor's adult content. And no, I didn't do it on purpose. I'm not that bored. Yet. So here's what happened. Our upstairs shower had been dripping for weeks, like an angry Morse code for "call a plumber, you lazy people." My husband, ever the DIY enthusiast who thinks watching 2 YouTube videos qualifies him as a contractor, offered to fix it. Naturally, he made it worse. Now the water not only dripped, it roared like Niagara every time we flushed. And then it happened. Water started dripping through our ceiling, right over the couch. During Jeopardy, that was the last straw. We called the landlord. The landlord called their guy, and their guy said the leak might be coming from the apartment above ours. Cue a knock on the neighbor's door. The mysterious Unit 4B. The girl who lived there? I didn't even know her name. All I knew was she wore crop tops in December and had very healthy packages arriving regularly, the kind shaped suspiciously like ring lights and leather. I mind my business, usually. But that day, when she opened the door in what I can only describe as a bathrobe made of air and sin, I choked on my own words. "Hi. Sorry to bother, but there's a leak and we think it might be coming from..." "Oh, come in, totally. I was just filming something. Ignore the lighting. Filming. Something." I stepped into her apartment and instantly felt like I'd wandered into the backstage of a burlesque show sponsored by IKEA. There were velvet curtains, a tripod, a suspicious swing, and a whiteboard with what appeared to be content themes. Taco Tuesday, latex plus guac. Worship Wednesday, heels only. Free feet Friday. I wanted to evaporate, but I was committed to the leak investigation, so we followed the sound of dripping into her bathroom, where the faucet was half unscrewed and water was splashing directly into a kiddie pool? She giggled. "I use it for splash content. It's fine." I stared at the pool, then at her, then at the waterproof ring light positioned above the shower. I've never felt more unprepared to process information in my entire life. My face must have betrayed everything, because she said, "You okay? You look like you just found your kid's diary." No, I mumbled. Just didn't realize we had such artistic neighbors. Then she asked the question that haunts me to this day. "Do you want a free trial link?" Now, a normal person would say no, but I'm not normal. I'm Midwestern polite. So I smiled and said, "Sure," like she had offered me banana bread. I took the QR code, thanked her like she had just rescued me from a snowstorm, and practically tripped over my own dignity running back downstairs. Later that night, fueled by 2 glasses of Pinot and morbid curiosity, I clicked the link, and, wow, there she was, in full dominatrix Barbie mode, pouring maple syrup over herself while reading The Art of War. Her subscribers were requesting history-themed lingerie content. One guy tipped her $100 to say Gettysburg in a sultry voice. I don't know what broke me more. The fact that she had 67K subscribers, or that she made in one stream what I made in a month as a graphic designer. The next morning, I bumped into her in the hallway. She winked. "So, thoughts?" I panicked and blurted, "Your use of lighting is inspired. Now I live in fear that she thinks I'm a fellow creator. And that one day she'll ask me to collab for Midlife Monday. The shower's still leaking. But I don't care anymore. Some leaks are divine intervention." Story 8. Let me start with this. If a man hands you a baby monitor, 3 post-it notes, and a bottle of Pinot Grigio and says, "Be yourself, just leave, run." Because what you're about to experience is not childcare. It's a weird, poorly disguised audition to be someone's second wife. So here's what happened. I saw this ad online. Babysitter needed urgently. Easy money. 1 sweet 3-year-old, snack ready. You can even bring your own wine. And I was like, wow, finally a parenting gig that gets me. I showed up at the house. It's in a suspiciously perfect suburb, the kind where grass is always 1.2 inches tall, and everyone owns either a golden retriever or a scandal. A tall guy in his 40s opens the door wearing a Henley shirt and dad sneakers like he's auditioning for a rom-com reboot. "Hey, you must be Laura," he says. I'm not Laura, by the way, but I'm too awkward to correct people in real time, so I nod like an idiot and walk in. Inside the house, candlelit. I mean, literal candlelit. Mood lighting. Scented with some woodsy cologne probably called Divorcee Redemption. There's light jazz playing and... Wait, no kid in sight. I blink. Where's the child? Oh, he laughs. She's asleep already. She's an angel. You'll barely hear a peep. He hands me a baby monitor with the screen turned off and says, "Let's sit down." Let's? Excuse me? Am I babysitting or dating? Then he opens a bottle of wine and casually says, "You have beautiful hands." Very nurturing. I should have left right there, but instead I muttered, "Thanks, I use lotion sometimes," and sat down. Because I'm not just socially awkward, I'm professionally uncomfortable. He starts asking deep questions. How do you feel about step-parenting? Do you like camping? Do you have unresolved issues with your own father? I'm halfway through my first glass when it hits me. This is not babysitting. This is a date, a stealth date. Worse, I didn't even swipe right. This man honey-trapped me with fruit snacks and the promise of easy cash. Then the kicker, he shows me a photo of his little angel, except it's a photo of him and his ex-wife in a wedding frame, awkwardly cut down the middle. She cheated on me with her spin class instructor, he whispers. Like it's a bedtime story. I haven't trusted women since... until now. What? At that point, I had a decision to make, confront him, make a dramatic exit, or pretend to check on the child and escape out the back window. I chose. Like a coward. A smart coward. I went into the supposed nursery. It was a guest room with a giant teddy bear, no crib, and a speaker playing white noise. There was no child. He made up a whole baby. I climbed out the window in yoga pants and flip-flops like some anti-bond agent who babysits illusions and escapes commitment by jumping fences. I Ubered home and texted him, "The baby is doing great." He replied, "So are we." Reader, I blocked him. Moral of the story? If it sounds too good to be true and the ad includes both Pinot Grigio and a toddler, it's probably not a job, it's a trap. Story 9. I always thought yoga was supposed to bring clarity, inner peace, and tighter glutes. What I didn't expect was that it would bring me face to face with the most awkward date I've ever been on. One I didn't even know I was having, with my husband tagging along like an emotional support Labrador. It all started when I joined a hot yoga class because my therapist said I needed healthy ways to channel stress. I think she meant meditation, or journaling, not being trapped in a 105-degree room with 30 sweaty strangers and a man whose body looked like it had been carved by Michelangelo during a midlife crisis. His name was Chase. Of course, it was Chase. No man with abs like that is ever named Leonard. Anyway, Chase was the instructor. He spoke in a breathy whisper that made downward dog sound vaguely erotic, and he always corrected my poses by placing his hands exactly where I wasn't sure I wanted them, but also wasn't entirely against. I told myself I was imagining things. After all, I was a married woman. A very married woman. My husband Dave still thought flossing together at night was romantic. Bless him. After a few weeks, Chase started giving me extra attention. He'd linger a little longer near my mat. His namaste felt like it had a wink hidden in it. And then one day, after class, he walked up to me with the confidence of a man who owns several mirrors and probably eats kale recreationally. "So," he said, wiping non-existent sweat off his perfectly sculpted brow, "there's this vegan place downtown. They do jackfruit tacos. You... want to grab some?" I blinked, twice. My brain short-circuited. Was this a date? Or was it a weird yoga group hangout thing where everyone discusses chakras and the emotional trauma stored in our hip flexors? I panicked. I blurted out, "Sure, my husband loves tacos." The flicker of horror that passed over Chase's face was subtle, but oh, it was there. Like watching someone realize they accidentally replied "you too" when the waiter said, "Enjoy your meal." He recovered quickly, plastering on a tight smile and saying, "Yeah, bring him." Now at this point, any sane woman would have either cancelled or clarified. But I am not any sane woman. I am a people-pleasing, over-explaining, socially anxious wreck who once apologized to a table for bumping into it. So instead of backing out, I made the worst possible decision. I brought Dave. And Dave, sweet, nerdy, oblivious Dave, was just thrilled to be included. He wore a button-down shirt and cologne, like we were going to a wedding, not a jackfruit taco joint with my suspiciously attractive yoga instructor. "Should I bring a gift?" he asked. "Is this like a dinner party?" I wanted to scream. When we arrived, Chase was already there, sitting at a patio table looking like a catalog model, casually pretending to be human. He stood up when he saw us, his smile faltering just for a second when Dave extended his hand and said, "I've heard so much about you, man. Thanks for keeping my wife flexible." Kill. Me. The dinner was a disaster in slow motion. Chase tried to steer the conversation toward soul alignment and spiritual intimacy, but Dave kept bringing it back to his fantasy football league and a very detailed explanation of what constitutes a tight end. I choked on my kombucha at least twice. At one point, Chase asked me what I wanted most out of life, and before I could answer with something elegant like balance or joy, Dave said, "She just wants to nap more, and maybe get that bidet installed." Chase never texted again. Story 10. I'm not sure what gave her the idea that I was flirting. Maybe it was the way I smiled when she said hi in the hallway, or maybe it was the time I offered to fix her leaky sink without charging. Or maybe, and this is my personal favorite, it was the time I told her she had a nice lamp. It was a lamp, a literal lamp, beige, IKEA. I was trying to make conversation while waiting for her to find the checkbook she mysteriously misplaced for the 4th month in a row. But no, in her mind, I was seducing her with passive-aggressive compliments and plumbing. I'm 47, she's 26. I own 5 pairs of identical khaki pants, a cat named Receipt, and a calendar that features 12 months of exotic accounting tips. I'm not exactly exuding alpha male energy, but in her rom-com fantasy, I was apparently Hugh Grant with a wrench. Look, I've been renting out this fourplex for 11 years. I've seen it all. Emotional support ferrets, loud breakups at 3 a.m., and one guy who tried to convert his bathtub into a hydroponic lettuce farm. But nothing prepared me for Rachel. Rachel, my tenant in 2 billions, with her eternally late payments, 5-part apologies and accidental cleavage displays during rent negotiations. She thought she was being slick. I thought I was being patient. But really, we were both just actors in a sitcom that had gone 2 seasons too long. It started small. One day she left a post-it on her door, out at yoga. Rent tomorrow? Tomorrow came. No rent, just more yoga. And possibly wine. Then she started texting. Not in a here's my Venmo way. No, it was more like OMG. I just watched Bridget Jones's Diary and thought of you. I asked her politely what part of me reminded her of a fictional British mess with dating issues and diary problems. She said it was the energy. What energy? I'm a middle-aged man whose idea of excitement is refinancing. After 2 months of these flirty smokescreens and missed checks, I decided to lay it out. I printed a late notice, highlighted the balance, and marched to her door like the ghost of adulting present. She answered in a silk robe. Not a sexy silk robe. Well, okay, it was objectively sexy, but that wasn't the point. I handed her the paper. She pouted. Oh, is this because I haven't invited you in for tea? Tea? Lady, I'm holding a spreadsheet of your financial negligence, not a bouquet of roses. I wasn't there to sip chamomile and stare into her twinkle light-covered living room. I was there to collect money, or at least a promise that didn't involve a wink. But she kept leaning in, giggling, touching her neck like we were in a Jane Austen novel where Mr. Darcy moonlighted as a property manager. I started to doubt myself. Had I accidentally given off daddy landlord vibes? Did I need to start wearing less flattering pants? The final straw came when she asked if I wanted to join her and her friends for a little wine night in her apartment. That's tenant code for, I'm gonna be 2 weeks late again, but you'll forget once we play Cards Against Humanity and you see me in soft lighting. I declined. Firmly. I reminded her, again, about the rent. The real romance in my life is named on-time payment. A week later, I got an envelope taped to my door. Inside was a handwritten card. Sorry I misread things. I know now you're just a serious landlord. Here's the rent and late fee. P.S. You really do have a nice lamp. I guess that's closure. Or at least better lighting.